Most people think that inflation is always bad, but the truth might actually shock you. Many millennials and those who came after would struggle to understand such a sentiment, especially as everything our parents seem to be able to afford with apparent ease seemed to be far out of reach. That said, we are here to prove that inflation truly isn't always the bane of society. Let's jump straight into it, shall we? Let's take a look at why you're misunderstanding inflation. Is inflation good or bad? The interesting thing about inflation is that it doesn't matter if inflation is low or high. When we look at how bad inflation has affected us, sure, the rise is annoying, but the real kicker is when it kicks us when we least expect it. Think about it. If we know that inflation is coming, we may be able to prepare ourselves for it. If we know that there is going to be 10% inflation in a few months, then we know that it's going to be a tough few months in the future. You can now make the necessary adjustments. If you are looking for a job, for example, you can factor in that 10% when you are asking for your wages. The same goes for banks, who will have to factor it in when they give out loans. If that is not done, people would lose anything from purchasing power to less payments. On the other hand, when there is deflation, you may find that people prove to be reluctant to spend their money. This is because they are waiting for a time when the prices would be lower in the future. As valid as this may be, but what about a situation where prices have been dropping over time? Take a look at computers and mobile phones. Sure, the latest iPhone can be a killer to buy, but we know that if we wait a few months, we could get it for a cheaper price. As such, we may be able to say that the issue here is not deflation itself, but perhaps the transition from inflation to deflation that may make such a thing good or bad. We may be able to say that the one time that inflation or deflation is outrightly a bad thing is when it eats into your purchasing power, especially when your purchasing power is in the form of cash or money in the bank. When inflation comes along, it will take away from the value of your money. If you are in a situation where your money is in the form of investment in property, you may be protected from the brunt force of said inflation. Makes you think, doesn't it? Inflation and the rise in prices. This is one of the most common misconceptions when it comes to inflation. In fact, you may find that once the prices go up, everyone is going to murmur about how inflation is to blame. Well, sorry to burst your bubble, but the rise of costs is not solely blamed on inflation. When you look into it, you will find that inflation is a rise in the average price level. As such, this means that during a period of inflation, you may find that some prices are rising while some other prices are falling. Let's take a look at a small sample, shall we? For example, now you may find that the average price of air travel fell at a rate of 3% per year. The interesting thing about this statistic is that at the same time, the rate of inflation was climbing at an average of 2% every year. With this, we can see how average prices were rising while some specific prices were falling. Considering this, we must not be quick to scream inflation when we notice that there is a rise in price on some specific goods or services. Increasing the minimum wage causes inflation. We're not sure why, but we feel like it's your boss that mutters this one more than anyone else. Let's just say that the increase of the minimum wage of a country does increase the prices of some goods. As such, we can say that this isn't inflation. Instead, you could consider it to be the rise in the cost of one specific product. Looking at such situations, we can say that it is such a non-factor that it could not be said to have a noticeable effect on the economy at large. Let's take a look at this example. Here, we noticed that about 1% of workers in the U.S. earn the federal minimum wage. As such, we can say that raising the minimum wage may not have much of an effect on prices in the country as a whole. Government's control of inflation by printing money or establishing price control systems. As great as this may sound, the government cannot control the rate of inflation or deflation. It is almost like replacing your car windshield with a TV screen and a camera. It just sounds crazy, especially when there will be a delay from the feed. You will just expose yourself to a ton of dangerous situations that could do a lot of damage to a lot of people. Instead of doing this, it is better to make sure that the money supply remains at a stable state. It is also better to grow the money supply at the same rate in which the economy is growing. If it grows 10%, the supply of money could grow at 10%. This will be better than actual and direct human intervention to the matter. Hopefully, this helped you get a better grasp on inflation. At least that way, you can make the best decisions for yourself and your money without panicking anytime you hear the word inflation.